Welcome to Grief Uprooted, a podcast dedicated to sharing your grief stories. Together, we embark on the mystery of one's grief journey as they learn to live, heal, and be courageous in a world rooted in trauma. Join myself, Christine, in an open discussion to help you uproot the grief in all our lives. I am an award-winning author, professional speaker, and humanitarian in the field of grief and trauma. I want you to be part of the discussion. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Grief Uprooted. Just a reminder, follow us, click that button and start following us on Spotify. You can visit us at griefuprooted.com, Facebook, Instagram, again, all those fancy social media. We want to get the word out that grief needs to be uprooted. We need to start this conversation, and we need to start it with everyone. So today, I actually had Dr. Alisa Difruscia. She brings such a unique blend of expertise. She's a naturopathic doctor, certified personal trainer, yoga instructor, all of it. One of the things that really fascinated me about Alisa was this new thing called German New Medicine. She's a teacher of it. And as we all know, that my personal experience with the loss of my brother, the death of my brother, was 6 months later, I was suspected of having bone cancer in my leg, and it was osteomyelitis, which is a bone infection found usually in older people. And it was always my belief that something triggered in my physical body to cause me to be ill. And I often thought it was a shutdown of the whole system because I was traumatized by this loss and this death, and the body couldn't heal itself. So I dove in really head first, not feet first, head first with Alisa to go, what is this all about? And the effects that grief has on our physical body. We also explore different ways of calming our system. We talk about actually a new segment coming up called Dirty Moments, those emotional triggers, and how are we going to deal with those on a daily basis. Happy to say I have something coming out that's going to help us with those dirty moments and those emotional triggers. She's also one of a kind, or for her kind, a personal journey and coach for this. This is something that's very close and passionate to her heart. And you wonder, how did this all start? How it all started was when I walked into her office, during COVID, in a hot mess. And she looked at me with great empathy for what I do for a living, and shared my mother just died of cancer. So this really did start a journey between the two of us. I was embarking on a mission for healing of my body and soul and spirit, had I known, for really all the grief and trauma that I was consuming throughout my career. So join me today. I can't say enough about Alisa, and find out some different ways of figuring out how to heal your grief from a natural perspective and how we can move forward in this. Again, do follow us on Spotify, check us out on Facebook, Instagram. We have a YouTube channel coming out also, and griefuprooted.com. Here we go. Welcome back to Grief Uprooted. Today I'm quite excited to have somebody that really I ran to. So it's always nice to bring people in that you've had a prior relationship with, because they know me very well. But this lady, I walked in her office during COVID. I was so overwhelmed. I was trying to help young children really zoom in on their telephones to funerals. I was trying to handle requests from schools on how to help children deal with grief. And I think my grief just became too much for me. Yep, I'm admitting it. That's the whole concept of Grief Uprooted. And when I walked into Dr. Alisa Difruscia, how do you say your first name? Say it.
It's okay. Alisa Difruscia.
Alisa Difruscia. She's a naturopathic doctor, certified personal trainer, and yoga instructor, German New Medicine teacher, and founder and coach at For Her Kind. But when I met her, she was in an office, and when I walked through the door, I was a hot mess. I'm just going to say it. I was a hot mess. And what I loved about you was it was the very first time I sat before a doctor that looked at me and I felt the empathy, but I also felt this vulnerability about you that, hey, I can connect. And
Mhm.
that just threw me into an emotional spiral where I just sat in front of you and bawled. Um,
Mhm.
but it was really, to me, it was a connection between two spirits. It was like I've walked a path that I feel that we're walking. And
Mhm.
so really where I wanted to start is you just kind of sharing your grief story. Like what kind of, you know,
Mhm.
I know what brings you here, but really for me, sitting in front of you, I was like, what happened to make this beautiful woman? Like, this is an amazing lady in front of me. And she clearly didn't become amazing just like that. Something had brought her to this. So kind of
Mhm.
what brought you, what's your grief story?
Yeah, I like this question. And honestly, like I've never really reflected on it. First of all, thank you so much for the beautiful introduction. It's so nice to be sitting down with you again.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so going back to my grief story. So it was such a weird time, right? Like everything
Mm-hmm.
was closed in Ontario.
Yeah.
My whole family was brought back to be at home with my mother, who was diagnosed with lung cancer,
Yeah.
perfectly healthy. Um, you know, did everything for the whole family, everyone's helper, took care of our grandparents, always putting everyone first. And she
Yeah.
was definitely like the glue to the family, let's say.
Mm-hmm.
And she was on vacation with my father and my aunt in Italy, and she had a bit of a cough. And anyways, that sent her into the system. Okay. And then that's when the diagnosis of lung cancer happened, the treatment, and ultimately I guess, what led to her passing. We all the children were brought home like to live at home during COVID because it just so happened to work out that way. Like I looked at it as a blessing, right? Like,
Yeah.
okay, we get this time with my mom,
Yeah.
and this is time that we would have never had.
Yeah.
And so I think gratitude really was like probably the main key to how I handled everything, I would say.
Mm-hmm.
Just being like, okay, wow, like we have this time with my mom, like, we can't go to work. I think I literally met you. Did my mom already passed when we
Yep.
met.
Yep.
Yeah.
She had just
Yeah.
passed.
So yeah, that makes sense because I literally had just gotten my license. Like I was a freshie. I was a fresh doctor when I met you. Um, so yeah, me, my brothers were home. They had flown home from other places. We were
Yeah.
just literally all living as a family, and we hadn't done that in years.
Yeah.
So I think that, yeah, gratitude, like just for that time that we had together. And then later, I mean, a deeper understanding happened, where, I kind of to I dug a little bit deeper, why am I a healthy mom? Like why would she get lung cancer kind of thing? And that
Mhm.
spiraled me into discovering German new medicine. And that has literally changed the way that I practice. It changes the way that I see myself, see my patients, everything for
Well,
me.
and what fascinates me about that is when I came to you, I was like, I've worked in deployment, I've done all this stuff, and I was like, I can't calm the system. And that
Yeah.
was my biggest problem was like, and I really thought it was menopause. I really did. I thought I'm going
Mhm.
through menopause and I'm all this and all that. And then when I was sitting there, I was like, and what brought me to was my daughters in COVID going, you're horrible. And I was like, what do you mean? And, they just looked and went, you're a bitch. And I was like, I'm a bitch. What are you talking about? And I was so mortified. And then when
Yeah.
I walked into your office and saw you, I was like, I'm going to bust. And
Mhm.
I do believe in the ability to feel other people's emotions and things like that. And so when I sat there, it was like, I know I'm safe, but it's like I overloaded my system. And you had
Mhm.
introduced me to the Dutch test, which
Mhm.
I absolutely loved because the results were adrenal fatigue.
Yeah.
And I,
It gives
I,
you like a reason, right? It's like, okay,
yeah,
now I have an
I
understanding.
have an understanding why, and I understood it all made sense to me. I love that heightened, I was used to being at that heightened sense. Um, but then returning to you now and saying, hey, I'd love you to come on to this podcast because I think you have a lot to share about grief. when you sent me German new medicine, I
Mhm.
know you were hesitant on it. And and I'm going to share with you right now, I'm hesitant on my theories where I look at people and say grief is affecting your physical body. And if we don't resolve things, you will kill yourself physically. I got,
100%.
yes, I got that. And I'm not sure if you remember this or know this, but I was in a doctor's office 6 months after my brother died, and
Mhm.
they thought I had bone cancer. And when I
Right.
was sitting there, this doctor said, um, you know, when you wake, you might have a metal bar in your leg. You might have to go for treatments. We're pretty sure you have bone cancer in your legs. And when I woke, there was an older doctor, Dr. McIntyre, sitting over me, and he said, "You don't have bone cancer. You have osteomyelitis." He goes, "How you
Mm.
got it? I have no idea." He goes, "It's a bone infection found usually in older people." And then he looked at me and he said, "I do not know what's affecting you, Sunshine." He goes, "But if you don't talk about what's inside of you, you're going to kill yourself physically." I took that man's words like the Bible. I I cannot tell you. I studied it in university. I was like the effects of grief on the human body because I felt like I walked back in your office and you yet again looked at me and said, "You're doing it again. You're
Mhm.
overdone." And it was really when I was younger, I thought I had dealt with it. I thought I came to terms with a lot of things. But a lot of people in grief go, "I think I'm there, and then I'm not there. Then I think I'm there, and then I'm not there." So, what brought you to the German new medicine? Like, what was that, the gratitude and all that type of stuff, or and I guess
Oh,
kind of explain what it is for a lot
def
of people don't know.
definitely. I will explain it, but I do want to touch on your bone infection or bone inflammation that you would have had. So that is actually a brutal separation conflict.
Makes sense.
Yeah, of the leg. So every part of the body um, has a specific programming and reason of why that happens. Like my mom's lung cancer, it so there's actually no such thing as metastasis. They haven't actually proven that to be true. It's a theory.
Mm-hmm.
So what actually, according to German medicine, it's actually just new conflicts, new developments of adaptations that occur.
Mm-hmm.
So for my mom, her right hip was affected, and that's like right bone cancer,
Mm-hmm.
and that's actually self-evaluation and like a burden.
Mm-hmm.
And for her, the self-evaluation was losing her hair and not being able to grocery shop like she would before,
Mm-hmm.
right? COVID restrictions, and then her being more of a candidate of um, catching COVID because she's on all these medications, right? Immunosuppressed. So just a little interesting fact there, just to lead me into the introduction of German medicine. I'll try and keep this short and sweet, but basically founded by a medical doctor in Germany, Dr. Hammer. Okay, he discovered this medicine. So he was actually a really famous doctor. He did a lot of good work for the community. He discovered a scalpel. Like he was like just a great guy. And his son, there's actually a movie on Netflix about this, or a documentary, The King Who Never Was. His son was accidentally shot. He just was in the wrong place at the wrong time, accidentally shot, ended up passing away 6 months later. After his death, a couple months later, after him and his wife, Dr. Hammer and his wife, I guess like resolved the death of their son and like were able to kind of like move on. They both developed quote unquote cancer.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so ovarian cancer in the mother, Dr. Hammer, testicular cancer, and he was like, hold on a second. He's
Yeah.
like, so he started to do more intentional interviewing with his patients because he worked in the
Yeah.
cancer ward, and he discovered that with no single outlier, every single cancer had a specific conflict shock that occurred. So, a traumatic event that has to follow three criteria: isolating, emotionally distressing, and unexpected. Okay, so it has to follow those three things. And then he even took it a step further. He did brain scans where he discovered what he names a Dirk Hammer a DHS, Derkhomer syndrome spot, and it's actually the place in the brain that represents, for example, your leg or your bone, your knee bone, leg bone, whatever, shows up in the brain. So he was able to make all these connections. He mapped out this like beautiful chart that just shows every single symptom or disease, its biological purpose. So it's like we can all take a deep breath with this new understanding. You know, when this is more publicly known, it's kind of there's a lot of us right now practicing this and teaching it, but it's going to take a while to become mainstream because of obvious reasons. So
I feel like the reason it'll take a while is with the work I do, I feel the people who follow Grief Uprooted who are grieving will be able to relate to this. Just in case someone's just tuning into this episode, my brother traumatically fell over Niagara Falls. So there was that major break in my protector, my sibling, my everything. We were inseparable, and then all of a sudden snapped from my life. And I think a lot of people who are grieving, what happens is the physical body has all these reactions. And that's been something I've studied for years. Even when attending university, they were like, "You're studying yourself." And I'm like, because I'm directly affected. And I interviewed a gentleman who had testicular cancer, Philip, in a prior episode. And what I was fascinated by what he said, it was consistently there that we all carry these genes. We all carry these cancer genes. And it was interesting to learn what flares them up. And it's kind of where, I looked at this and went, okay, is it the conflict that flares this up? Is that's what's happening? So, yeah, like, is that kind of when you're grieving, you just shut down completely? And I think people don't realize you physically shut down also.
Absolutely. And I'm going to touch on that thought, but just to close on a little bit more of how Dr. Homer discovered it. I didn't say. So the loss conflict in a child would be testicles in a man. Obviously, you're trying to produce more testosterone to produce, right? You're trying to fill the void of the loss. So you want to reproduce and have more children. Like biologically, that just makes sense, right?
Yeah.
For the women as well. Ovaries, ovarian cancer, we want to make more ovaries. PCOS, same thing. Like multiple cysts on the ovary, multiple loss conflicts. Okay, so women with miscarriages, fears around being a mother, those types of things, that will show up in that way. And then I'm curious for your client that had the testicular cancer show up, did he lose his son?
No, he actually worked in a funeral home, and he started, though he has an amazing, it's a great episode. He started as a young boy in a funeral home and in high school, and just started working there and never experienced grief. And then all of a sudden, the stepfather, the all these people started dying in his life. And that all of a sudden he was planning his own funeral because they said, you have cancer and you're going to die. And he really embraced really his mind. He was like, I'm going to do this. I have to do this. But he said when he hit acceptance was when he started to heal.
Yes. Look at the vibrational frequencies chart. Maybe you can accompany that. Guilt, fear, all of those things, which unfortunately modern medicine pushes us that way, right? Oh, you have a year to live. Oh, you have a year and a half to live. And that's what happened to my mom. There's difference. There's acceptance, which keeps you high vibe. And then there's fear, which is lower. Acceptance and love, that's where you heal. On we're all giving off frequencies all the time, right? You've heard of sound healing, all stuff. If we can keep ourselves up there and take ourselves out of fear with any diagnosis, any symptom we're having, any of those things, then we're able to move through things with more ease, and our body can complete the healing phase, because that's all symptoms are. Symptoms are your body trying to heal. We are the variable. So when we try and get in there and disrupt that natural healing process, that's when things get messy and stay stuck.
We interrupt this podcast for a dirty moment.
Welcome back to Grief Uprooted, Dirty Moments, a moment in time that grief just slaps us in the face. I'm really kind of playing with these dirty moments, trying to figure out the best way to bring grief resiliency into your life. So we're going to ground again by touching something in our environment. So what grounding is taking that moment to touch something that's in your environment that's surrounding you. We really are looking to live in the moment. So touch the desk, the chair, your arm, your leg, whatever is around you, just to ground you with the earth beneath you. You also can take a deep breath in through your nose and exhale through your mouth. This ultimately is relaxing your body as you're grounding it to the earth. But now just follow me on a journey as we do a little bit more discovery on what triggers are and how they can affect our daily lives. There once was 2 seeds in a garden. One was very excited to nuzzle itself into the earth and start to germinate and grow. The other seed kind of sat there thinking, I don't want to do that. What if I start to lay my roots down and I start to grow and I become very beautiful? Somebody may come along and pick me or pluck me and place me in a vase and I will die. The other seed decided, I'm going to go for it. I'm going to lay my roots and let them grow as far as they can. And I'm going to grow the most beautiful flowers. So as one seed sat there thinking about it, not growing, the other decided to grow. And just at that very moment, a bird swoops down and plucks the seed that has not even started to grow its roots and ate it. Sometimes we get stuck. We're scared to lay down roots. We're scared to grow farther after grief hits us. Those triggers just instill fear in us. Those dirty moments that just jump up when you're not thinking about it, they stop you. They stop you from growing. And just like the bird, something will come along and you literally die with inside. So it's time. It's time to let the roots grow. It's time to let yourself blossom. Being stuck in your grief is extremely hard. I would say the dirtiest of dirtiest moments is being stuck. Triggers happen. They happen every day. And that's okay, because grief resiliency happens every day too. Don't be the seed that doesn't want to grow. Be the flower that's going to take small baby steps in embedding those roots in the ground and showing how beautiful you really are. Until next time, take care. And please do send me your triggers. Send me your dirty moments. Let me explore them. Let me find a little parable or story to share with you that'll get you through those daily dirty moments that arise. Triggers are something that are not going to go away. Grief is integrated, but they are things we can handle together. They are the dirty moments in life that we'll overcome together. Take care. Yeah, and that makes sense. And I think,
Or get worse.
Pardon?
Or get quote unquote get worse.
Yes, because I think a lot of times people disregard, they think grief is emotional. And they just go, grief is all emotional. That's what's happening to me. And and it comes in so many forms. It can be divorce, it can be death, it can be conflict at work, it can be moving, it can be a war, it can be all sorts of things. And when I have them come into my office, they're talking and they're going, and I'm like, what are the physical problems? And they'll look at me and go, well, that has nothing to do with it. That has everything to do with it.
Everything.
And
Programs to look out for, especially with grief, because that's like separation conflict, loss conflicts. Of course, we're looking at cancer adaptations, but heart programs as well, heart attack, chest pain, rashes, like skin manifestations.
that makes sense.
Yeah, those are popular for sure. And of course, like the adrenal fatigue. Adrenal fatigue is literally your body just being stuck in fight or flight, right?
Yes.
And
Yes.
just not being able to chill out. It's like you're running on fumes. Yeah, there's no more resources left.
Yes. But then when you decide to accept, I find that I have this in my daily work and everything, because I handle conflict much different than I used to. But I do find when I come to an acceptance to an issue I'm dealing with, the body just goes like I just
Really.
feel everything fall and drop. And
Mhm.
then I naturally want to feed it Tylenol and go, come on, get it together. Let's go. We're going. And I realize I'm an adrenal junkie. I love my motorcycle. I love all sorts of crazy things that may tempt me. I just love them. And that's the way I am. And I've come to accept that. But I find when people are going through that grief process and they hit acceptance, they think life is going to be wonderful. And they're like, okay, this is great. But then they feel all these physical elements. Like they're like, my body hurts, my head hurts. And they're don't put the two together. I'm here to say the two match. The body has been like this the whole time. And then when it relaxes, it's like your muscles just go, oh my goodness, they don't know what to do. And you feel kind of jellyish. Like I've done sound therapy, osteopath, all sorts of different things. And I think this is crazy. This is going to do nothing. Then I leave and I'm physically like, oh my God, what did you do to my body? And I'm amazed. But what my question is to you is when you do get to that acceptance, what really happens to your body?
Healing. So like if we're looking at, like, think about running from a bear. Okay, you can also see that as like you dealing with or running away from your emotions after death. Okay, you can, after someone else passes, you cannot. I always refer to digestion, which is just because it's like an easy example. You're not going to have nice digestion when you're running, right, from a bear. Like when you're in that like fear state, like heightened state, you need to move into that rest and digest stage. And that is where healing takes place. That's acceptance. That's your breath work. That's like you doing sound baths. That's you just like coming into you and just like taking a moment. And yeah, acceptance is huge. Love and acceptance.
And it's the hardest stage. It's the
So
hardest
hard.
one.
So hard.
It's the one where you try to get people to live life in the moment and accept, and it's the one that everybody just wants to leave and go into another direction.
And nobody wants to accept their reality when it's without the person they love the most, right?
Yeah, exactly. And then there's all those regrets that fall into play there. One of the things that I found in my research on German New Medicine that kind of fascinated me was that once you hit acceptance, that seemed to be when the symptoms arrived. And so I was curious, is it because you're so tightly wound in fight flight that the body can't even move? Like I know myself, I'm comparing it kind of to my own self, and I compare it to being in a jar. And I teach people that you're in the jar emotionally. But when that jar breaks, all these things start to happen physically to the body. And I think that's the hardest part of this that's to compute, or the most controversial part of this to compute, is that when acceptance hits is when the body gets sick. Explain that one.
I can explain it. I'm going to ask any of the listeners right now just to like reflect and think if you've ever gotten sick on vacation or got sick on holidays. Okay, why do you think that is?
Because I'm nervous. Oh, because I relax. Oh, that's why every vacation sucks.
Yeah, because
That's
you are running on
oh,
adrenaline. You are
that's
in
true.
fight or flight. Okay, this is
Mm-hmm.
also me too. I'm dealing with
Yeah.
a lingering head cold because I'm constantly being re-triggered, and I know my triggers. And even though I know this medicine, it doesn't mean that I'm immune to it. This
Yeah.
is the first time I have been sick though since
Yeah.
learning about this medicine, I will say. But anyways, so your symptoms happen, usually typically before vacation, you're running around, getting all the things done, making sure everything's closed off so you can enjoy your vacation,
Yeah.
but you're in fight or flight, you're running from a bear. You're
Mm-hmm.
not able to, you're on your stress hormones. And then once you finally get to the beach, you put your feet up, your body's like, oh, okay, it's time to repair. Let's do it. Let's do a deep house cleaning.
Yeah. Super sucks, but makes so much sense. So
Mhm.
how do you do the housekeeping at home?
Awareness is key. So
Um,
as you start to learn this and study this a bit more, if you're working with someone, you can kind of figure out what your triggers are
mhm.
and how you can shift your perspective around your triggers, right? So, I mean, and sometimes you have to shift your reality too. But most things can be fixed with perception.
Wow. I just
Then,
started. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
no, you go ahead. You just started.
And just a series called Dirty Moments, and it's just a 5 minute little thing that's coming out to make people's perception of their triggers a little bit different. Grief
Oh,
resiliency, yeah. So I'm taking
yes.
old wise tales that we've heard and relating them to our triggers, because that, I believe, is one of the things that affects people's ability to grow and move forward, is these constant triggers we're receiving. They're shooting us
Mhm.
back. Now, I've worked in, when I was working with veterans, we did a thing called chain analysis. And we would start at really at the end of the story. What was the trigger? What was happening to them? One gentleman I worked with was the laughter within children. He would go to McDonald's or he would go to any playground, and the laughter and the children's voices would drive him insane. And we would
Mhm.
work our way back in our memory bank to where this became an annoyance, because here he was coming home from deployment. He's now a father and he's just finding his head, he's got migraines, all sorts of stuff. In the end, his job was to set landmines, and unfortunately, he set them in the wrong area, and that devastated him to the point that the mind blocked the story out. But when he came back home, the triggers pulled the story in. And here, this poor man was suffering from horrible, horrible headaches, horrible ailments within his body. And when I started to work with him and we did chain analysis, I think I'm giving myself goosebumps because it was the most it it was the
Mhm.
most profound time I was ever with somebody who had a paradigm shift. And
Mhm.
it was like, oh my goodness, this happened to me. And I was like, your mind had the ability to put this away, but
Mhm.
the body couldn't. The physical
Right.
body could not deal with this. So once we
Mhm.
got there, um, yeah, acceptance happened, but he became very sick.
Mhm.
And that was the part that was, I think, with this, people can't wrap their head around. They think they should be sick while they're in it. But your vacation story makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, and it can be scary, right? Like
Hmm.
that's why I like German medicine is because it almost gives us like just a deep what gives us a deeper understanding, but it takes that fear away. If we know that
Hmm.
this is gonna happen, then we can downgrade our fear around it because symptoms can be scary, right? If
Yeah.
we don't know why they're happening, like have you ever been sick before and been like, oh my God, am I gonna die?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
it's happened to all of us.
Uh,
Or injured or like bone
mhm.
pain or back pain flares. Oh my
Yeah.
gosh. When I used to have back pain, I would like freak out. So all of these things, they're just creating all this fear, low vibration on the frequency scale, and it's also keeping us locked in that healing phase, so that our body cannot complete the natural process that it needs to.
Yeah.
Right.
That's right. That makes
So
sense.
this is why I love this medicine because it's available to everyone to learn. Also,
Hmm.
so if everyone can just kind of chip away at educating themselves or even just reading up on it, or at least learning the 5 biological laws, which is what the medicine's based off of, or knowledge. You can use those words interchangeably. And laws have never been proven wrong. Okay, so like laws are like think of physics, like super intense. Theories, on the other hand, have been proven wrong. I'm not going to say what theories, but I'm sure you can think of what theories I'm talking about when it comes to, like, let's say COVID, for example. So I think just kind of shifting people gently to learning this information, especially when they're going through grief, so they can know what to expect, right? Like how they might be feeling, what symptoms they might come into contact with. And, you know, if they know what conflict causes what, how can we shift our perspective around that, or just create an environment that just for themselves that just allows them to shift into that healing a little bit more. It's hard work, don't get me wrong.
But it's worth it when you're at the other end of it. So you talk about 5 laws. What are they? Do you know them?
Oh, the first law. Yeah. The first law, everything. So the DHS must be emotionally distressing. My gosh, emotionally, what I said at the beginning. Emotionally distressing, unexpected, and emotionally unexpected, shocking.
Yeah.
Unexpected shock, emotionally distressing, isolating. So it's like a specific event. Okay. And then the second one is the onset of disease happens in 2 phases. So this is basically what we've been talking about this whole time. So there's the what we call I don't need to go into the science of it, but there's basically the conflict active phase. So where you're not noticing, where you're just like really like you're grief ridden and that's all you can think about before vacation. Okay. And then there's after vacation. Okay, that's the healing phase. That's when symptoms are showing up, and that's when resolution can complete. And then there's the third biological law is that the mind, body, spirit are all connected. Every single disease has a purpose or symptom has a purpose. And then there's also the one number 4 is like viruses, bacteria, fungi are here to help us. Okay, they are helpers. They're not to be feared. And the last one is called quintessence. And it's really just the fact that there's a higher purpose at work, and we're evolutionary beings, and everything has like a specific biological purpose, and it's usually simpler than we think.
It's interesting because I think Dr. Hammer he experienced a traumatic loss of his son, and him and his wife getting sick caused them to really slow down and dive deep. It made them go, hey, like, what is this all happening for? Because you just never picture your life to be this. You never picture it to come to this point. And so some of the things that I kind of wanted to explore was when you're grieving, because a lot of our listeners are grieving in that state, they're struggling going, how do I get to acceptance and how do I heal myself? And I wholeheartedly believe this is mind, body, spirit. I think that we use our minds to talk about it, and they'll come to coaches like myself, or they'll go to counselors and they'll talk, they'll ruminate till they're blue in the face. And then they get to a point where they're like, I'm done ruminating. I'm done talking about it. And they feel like they've hit acceptance, and then they start moving forward. And I so wish medical doctors would look at grief in a different form. I really wish they would look at it and go, this also affects you physically. Now, you may not need medication to get you through, but I do believe there should be a medical plan to help you get through. And that does entail meditation, that does entail searching within yourself and connecting to your body, because that disconnect is what's going to start some illnesses happening. That's going to start those rashes. That's going to start all these allergies. It's going to start so many different things. So if you were to help somebody dealing with grief, what would be some of your things to recommend that people would kind of give a try and go from there?
Yeah, I think the easiest one and the most natural one, and it's free, would be breath work, for sure. I like specifically a type of breath work called Soma, Soma, because it's active, like it keeps you on rhythm and time, and it's kind of fun. It kind of feels like a dance, so it really helps like increasing your vibration, but also it, using your breath, you can use your breath to trick your body into that healing phase. Because your breath triggers your vagus nerve, and your vagus nerve puts you into rest and digest, or parasympathetic state where healing can occur. And it's also easier to shift your perspective in that way. So using your breath, and then honestly, maybe just like some journaling after, or like writing down some like things to be grateful for, despite how hard it might feel, because it's like a muscle. It gets better over time, and it would get easier. And then ultimately, just remembering to, like, if symptoms are showing up, if there's a rash, if there's headaches, migraines, pain, your body is just speaking to you, and understand that we are nature, right? Nothing is meaningless. Our bodies are trying to work for us, not against us. So if we can just kind of allow, like the art of allowing, and understand it's just like part of the process, everything, discomfort's where the magic happens, right? So kind of just getting over that and asking, okay, what can I learn here? I think that's something I left out with the passing of my mom, is I really tried to ask, okay, like what can I learn here? And fortunately, I learned a lot. And now I'm like, okay, now I can use what I've learned to help other people, hopefully.
Yeah, definitely. Are you wondering how to take that first step after your loved one has died? Do you find this grief journey just too difficult to bear? Do you wonder how you're going to go through the clothing left behind from your loved one? Do you wonder how you're going to make it to the next day? These are common questions that my clients ask. As a grief and trauma coach and a mastery practitioner, many people wonder how to take that next step. I'm offering to you today a free session, a free grief and bereavement trauma session with myself. Visit griefuprooted.com, click on Grief and Trauma Coaching, and fill out that free assessment. For 1 hour, we will explore your journey. We'll explore where you've been, where you hope to go, and the path that it takes. Visit griefuprooted.com and take advantage of a grief and trauma and bereavement coaching. You won't regret it. Even the free assessment will give you some guidance, understanding, and hopefully a path to success. And from a naturopathic doctor perspective, because there are going to be people out there that, and I've got to admit, I've tried everything during my journey. Like, this has been a journey since I was 14, and I have tried all sorts of different herbs. They do work wonderfully when giving birth at home. When I had my last baby, last baby at home in the living room.
Flex baby.
Yeah, that's it. That was and I now absolutely love her. Totally understand why she's here now. At the time, thought I was insane at 40 to do this. And when they looked at me and said, "No, you don't get drugs," I'm like, "You're not joking?" They're like, "No, but we have some herbs over here." Herbs? What the hell is a herb gonna do? And that's when I embraced deep breathing, learning how to control my body and accept that this was a natural process. Once I did that, I gave birth to the most beautiful girl in my living room with my whole family around. I woke up in the morning amazed that I did it. And I remember feeling my tummy going, holy smokes, there's a baby here. And it was amazing. Absolutely amazing. A totally different experience than a hospital birth.
So I'm so glad you said that, because we've been having children, like women have been giving birth for years and years and years and years. We know how to do it. Like we don't really need all of the doctors and the nurses, and we don't really need that. Like we really don't. So I think that's really cool. There's actually a book. There's two books. One related to your menopause story, and it's really helped me with patients who are experiencing any symptoms around menopause. It's called The Wiser Woman's Guide to Menopause, because also understanding menopause shouldn't be something to fear too. Like when we're sometimes, like for you, for example, like the hot flashes, like the symptoms you were having, the weight gain, you were like, oh my gosh, like kind of freaking out about it a little bit. A little. Understand like menopause is not a disease, right? Menopause is something natural that we're supposed to experience. So if we can just like allow and lean into that, it's not going to be as bad as if we're like trying to fight it. So that is a good one. And then The Portal to Blissful Birth is a really good book as well for anyone who's kind of like either newly pregnant or going through that time, the beautiful time of like expecting, having a baby.
The ending of my last book was that I was always bringing death home because my career was this. And when I'd come home, my children would say, "Oh, you're crying." And I would say, "My soul hurts. It's going to just take me a while to adjust back." And I would adjust back. And this time I thought, wouldn't it be great to bring like life into my house? And that really worked. It really did. It was amazing to show my kids like this is birth. And you're right. This is a natural thing we do. I think where we got kind of screwed up is we look at menopause as the bad thing. We look at, oh no, I'm going to give birth and it's going to be big and scary. Not saying people shouldn't go to doctors and hospitals. They should definitely. But for me, it was my third baby. And I'd been there before, done it before. So to have her at home just felt like such a blessing. But what a different experience, because I had to shut down society in my mind. And one, I was in my 40s. That was wrong. Two,
Comments.
the comments were unbearable. And I had to go, this is a purpose. This is a reason you're here. And this is going to be okay if you trust your body. You know what to do. And I did. And I did. But I think in grief,
I have goosebumps.
I think in grief, we have a similar thing. We don't trust that our body and minds and spirit know what to do, because we're like, well, we don't know how to do this, and it literally, we do know how to do this. Like we were born knowing we're going to die. But we just don't seem to want to be able to. So is there besides that, any natural thing that would, I know things that calm because you've given them to me. I know. And I think the best thing that I still continuously do and love is take oil, because it's really good for my hair. But everything about this body is dry. And so I love that there were certain things, like I remember taking cordyline, and that helped with balancing the adrenals. So I'm curious, when you're grieving, is there any herb or something that may help you? Because really, I think what we're all talking about here is really having compassion for your body and accepting that it needs to be cared for. And we're women. What do? We care for everybody else. We just take care of everyone else. And then when we're going to care for ourselves, you know what we do? Let's get our hair done. Let's get our nails done. Instead of really taking care of what really needs to be taken care of, your soul, your spirit, and your body.
For sure. So I definitely so there's something called Ignatia, Ignatia. It's a homeopath. It's very light and subtle. That is very helpful for grief. And there's herbs. I love herbs, right? They just do exactly what you said. They bring like some homeostasis into the body and just assist with calming you down. That being said, it's, the herbs or the supplements, they don't work unless you do as well, right? Like you need to also put a little bit of effort into, otherwise it's not really going to do much. But yeah, cordyline's a great one. It has ashwagandha in it, some marlora, just really great herbs. But they're never taken for a long period of time, right? Like they're a tool to get you to the next place. Like I think we had you taking it for 3 months. Just to help restore balance in the body, but you were doing a lot of other good things as well, right? Like you were, working on your eating, the other things to help you just create a better external environment, okay? Because your body's responding to your environment.
Very true. Very true. And I find through that process, I'm able to discover how I cope. And I think a lot of
Mm-hmm.
people cope with their grief in different ways. Mine is eating a whole damn friggin' chocolate cake. I will
Mm-hmm.
sit down and eat sweets. And it
Mm-hmm.
wasn't until we did the Dutch test that I went, of course I do. Because
Mm-hmm.
it makes me jittery. It takes me to fight, flight, or freeze.
I
And
think it gives you, but it also gives you endorphins, like
yeah,
feel good hormones, right? Because you're
yeah,
depleted of your feel good hormones because you're,
yeah,
I mean, grief is soul sucking. It can be,
yeah,
right? Especially, and that's what you do every single day. You do like such. We're so lucky to have you. But yeah, so that's why. And
yeah.
then when you have understanding, it's like acceptance is that much easier when you
Yeah.
have understanding.
Yeah, definitely. And that's where you find these other things. Like I spend an enormous amount of time in nature. I'm
Yes, so
constantly,
good.
constantly running out. I went to Hawaii and I was sitting at the end of my bed in the hotel and everybody was like, "What is wrong with you?" And I was bawling. And I was like,
Mm,
"I need to go outside." And they're like, "It's 3 a.m." And I'm like, "I'm going." And I went
yeah.
outside and ran around an outdoor mall. And it was cute because there was a security guard there and he was like, "What are you doing?" And I'm like, "I have to go out and I just cannot do this." And I didn't
Mm-hmm.
realize how much I had embraced nature in my
Mm-hmm.
career until I was hit with, you can't go outside. And I didn't know where I was, what I was doing, but it was the time that I wanted to go outside. Moment I hit outside, the moment everything just started to flow, I went, okay, I'm great. Walked along the beach, went home, had a fabulous day. But it just felt like I need to go and outside. I need to be somewhere with my own mind.
Mm-hmm.
So, well, what else would you add to somebody who, and what do you offer? Like, if some of these people want to reach out to you and start working with you, how do they find you?
Yeah, so I'm trying to think if there's anything I would add.
Mm-hmm.
I would just say like it's all learning. Learning about yourself,
Mm-hmm.
learning you know, just getting a deeper understanding of everything. Like there's just so much to learn. And I think if you can just take this time to do that, um, it will it will definitely just help. Hmm.
I have one question you made me think
Yeah.
because I've been asked this question. And do you think you can prepare yourself for grief? Having experienced the loss of your mom, one, do
I
you
think
think
I
you
did.
did you? Like that's
I
curious.
it, I don't know because it still comes up. Grief's never ending, right? Like there's
Mm-hmm.
still, events. Like I think I was 27 or 28 when I
Mm-hmm.
lost my mom. There's obviously so many things that will be triggering, right? Like my friends getting married or
Yeah.
things like that. But I do think I did prepare myself in terms of acceptance. I think I accepted it
Mm-hmm.
before she was gone, which I don't know. I'm not to say that that's like what you should do by any
Yeah.
means. Um, but I think it did help me.
Yeah. And she was ill, so I found that there was no, like, it wasn't even a thought in my head. Like, I never even knew what grief was or death.
That's
And
the thing. There's traumatic events like yours. Like you didn't even get to. I would argue that I was in a better position than a person who has no
yeah,
expectation. I know everyone says, "Oh, it's all the same," but I don't know.
yeah,
The way it all happened, that's why I also look back. I was so grateful too, because I was like, it's
yeah,
almost like too perfect how it's happening, right? Like,
yeah,
like we said goodbye to her all in one room at home, no hospital. Like it was just like I was really fixated on how grateful I was for how that
yeah,
turned out, and then perspective, right? Like even just meeting you and hearing your story with your brother, like that allowed me to kind of again go back to gratitude. So
yeah,
yeah, I don't know. It's such a hard question because I
yeah.
guess it's so individual. It really is.
It is. And that's why, like, one of my plights is let's just bring it up in health class in school.
Yeah.
Like, when you say, this is how you have sex, well, this is what happens when the baby dies. Just
Oh,
add
I
that
love
little
that.
line, just a simple little line. Because I
Yeah.
think then it goes, wait a minute, they can die, right? I think it's a subject we all just keep avoiding. Whereas if we could just interject it in a normal conversation, then
Yeah.
all of a sudden it's like, oh, yeah, okay, this is a possibility in life where a lot of us just never knew it was a possibility. It just happened. And you're like, okay, what do I do with this?
Or not knowing what healthy coping mechanisms would be after.
Yes, definitely. Definitely.
Mm.
I think that's one of the, because I don't think you can be prepared for the amount of human sorrow you're going to feel. I think
Mhm.
it's a depth of pain that, yeah, you never want to even go there. So that's in the whole other conversation of people are just not even going to allow their minds to go there, because if you go
Resistance.
there, yeah, it's absolutely awful. So
Mhm.
it ends up, yeah, definitely. So, but how do people find you? How do they
Oh yeah.
find you?
You can find me at and definitely just send me a DM if
Mm-hmm.
you do find me for her. Oh, sorry. You can do for her kind. That's
Mm-hmm.
easy.
Yeah.
Or you can do dr like doctor dot Alisa Alisa dot nd like naturopathic doctor, not medical doctor, on Instagram. And yeah, let's just chat because I don't typically advertise my services.
Mm-hmm.
I'm on a referral base just because of scheduling, but I would love to meet with anyone who's interested.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I love what you're doing now with For Her Kind. I see like it's really a mind, body, spirit thing.
Mhm.
It's really taking people to a new level and helping them deal not just with their eating and their physical, but that
Mhm.
mental perspective too. It's amazing.
Yeah.
Absolutely amazing. Well,
Yeah. Yeah. For her kind. Yeah. Changing your body composition. There's so much that goes into that than just the food and the training, right? Like
oh my God,
it's
yeah.
yeah. As you know.
It's a mindset. It's an
Mhm.
absolute mindset. And I think you can have all the training and all the food, but if that mindset isn't right, you're kind of, and I love that you're capable of giving those little bit of things to help you move along.
Oh, Germany medicine, if you're
Yeah.
stuck, if you're actually in like, eating right and training right and you're finding that you're not able to lose weight, there's the Germany medicine perspective of that too is, water retention because either self-abandonment or sorry, abandonment in general or feeling like a fish out of water. It just Germany medicine is able to give like a deeper understanding to everything and that's why I like it. It helps.
Yeah. And one of the things I did that if people want to learn more about it was I Googled German new medicine and then put my symptom after it just to
So
test
good.
it out, and things came up. So they were able to explain a little bit to me of where the conflict was, and really, and I did do my leg, and I was really shocked because it was a split, and I was
Mhm.
just like, oh wow, that totally makes sense, right? What happened to me? So now I'm really cognitive of what I'm going through compared to my body. And I love your vacation story. I think that's amazing. I think people
Oh
should
yeah.
go, oh,
Yeah,
yeah,
it's just
that
a
totally
way to
makes
think about it,
sense.
right?
Yeah, I just never thought about it. That's why perception is great. Well, thank you for
Mhm.
coming. I'm totally honored having you.
Thank
And
you.
I just want to reach out to everybody. Do press the button and follow us, and do send me your questions, and we'll get to them. And do reach out to Alisa. And yeah, thank you so much for being here. I totally
Of
love
course, thank
you.
you. I love you too.
All right, take care, everybody, and until next time, bye bye. Grief Uprooted professional grief and empowerment coaching are not to be used as a substitute for professional advice by legal, medical, financial, business, spiritual, or other qualified professionals. All our products and services are designed for grief empowerment through learning and sharing of one's lived experiences.